Welcome back into the show, Cut the Killer Carbs, right here with Dr. Justin Anderson, of course, Metabolic Coaching. Check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net. And you can follow us on Facebook, like I said, Cut the Killer Carbs Facebook. Our direct number, 448-0322. That's 448-0322. Of course, along the way, phone lines will be open at all times, 745-5800. Text line available, 806-745-5800. Let me say good morning once again to Dr. Justin Anderson. Good morning, sir.
Buenos dias, Wade.
How are you?
That's how they say good morning here in Texas.
Yes.
Buenos dias.
Good day.
Good morning.
Good day, good day. Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, so what's the latest, man? What do you want to talk about today on the show?
You know, today we're not even going to talk about carbs.
What?
No carbs today.
We're going to talk all protein.
We're going to talk drugs.
Drugs?
Yes, because I had with metabolic coaching and the metabolic coaching program, we do weekly follow-ups with people. And in this last weekly follow-up, one of the clients, she said, I've been doing the program about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I've gained 14 pounds.
Whoa, wow.
And so we went over her, we've looked at her food diary, what she's been eating. We checked her temperature to see if she had thyroid problem or undertreated thyroid disease, a bunch of different things. You know, we made sure she was eating less than 20 net carbs a day. And then from the discussion with her, the problem is that 6 weeks ago she started a medication. And so it's not that the reason that she's gaining weight on this diet. You know, we sit in a room for this follow-up, and there's like 10 or 12 people there doing the follow-ups. And, you know, I lost 2 pounds. People report, I lost 2 pounds this week. I lost 1 pound. I lost a half a pound. You're going around the room, everybody's losing weight. And then you have somebody who's gained 14 pounds in 6 weeks, and that's not right. That's not normal. And so a lot of people out there may be gaining weight because of the medications that they're taking, because there's a whole enormous list of medications that cause weight gain. And what happens is, lots of times people can be on one medication that causes weight gain, and if they're doing the diet, they'll do okay. They'll still lose weight, they'll do fine. Specifically, I have a lot of clients who take, prescribed by their doctor, they'll take like a SSRI, an antidepressant. And the SSRI antidepressants are known to cause weight gain. And I've had a lot of clients who they can still take that medication that causes weight gain and still lose weight by cutting the carbs out of the diet. But what happens is if they're taking 2, 3, 4, or 5 different medications that all cause weight gain, you can do whatever you want with your diet. And the power of all those medications is going to cause you to gain weight.
Unbelievable. I never thought of it that way.
So going through specifically, I'll just kind of use this client as an example to kind of let the audience know how this can work. Is that I went through kind of all of her medications that she's taken recently, that she's been on, and there are a lot of people who have who take different kind of medications to stabilize their mood and stuff like that, and those things can cause weight gain. And one of them, 6 weeks ago, the client had started a medication called aripiprazole, which is Abilify. Aripiprazole or Abilify, in 2 clinical trials that I looked up, it caused something like 10 pounds of weight gain in 6 weeks. And so, you know, that sounds like just like her story. She gained 16 pounds in 6 weeks, and in the studies they gained 10 pounds in 6 weeks. And then you add on to that medication like an SSRI, which is known to cause weight gain. And the SSRIs, those are like Paxil, Prozac. And Paxil and Prozac, their generic names are paroxetine and fluoxetine, and something like that. And so you add one medication that causes weight gain on top of another one, and then, you know, your result is going to be weight gain. Also, another thing from her story is that she had done a low carbohydrate diet for I think 3 years, and during 3 years she lost 90 pounds. That's awesome, right? But about a year and a half ago, her weight started coming back on. Well, a year and a half ago, she started taking synthetic hormones for menstrual issues. And so you add on to, now you've got the Abilify plus an SSRI plus synthetic hormones, all of which are known to cause weight gain. So you got 3 medications together. And in addition to that, about 3 months ago, the client had started a cholesterol medication like Lipitor, a statin. And the statins don't really cause weight gain, but statins are known to worsen insulin resistance and worsen blood sugars. And so you can add that worsening of insulin resistance onto the 3 other medications that also cause weight gain.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And so one of the approaches with clients who come into the program is number one, change their diet first. If we can change their diet, which starts to improve their blood pressure or their diabetes or their cholesterol, then they can talk to their doctor and start to taper off of some of these medications that may cause weight gain. And they may have to taper off some of these medications and get off of them before the weight gain before the weight loss actually starts to happen. So let's just go through the list. Let's start with the meds that cause weight gain, that are known to cause weight gain, because a lot of just people out in the audience, they may say, oh, I gained 10 pounds this year. What happened? I eat kind of the same thing. And they don't realize that what happened was about a year ago is when they started taking some sort of medication for their acid reflux or something, and that's what caused the weight to start getting out of control. A real common cause of weight gain are going to be the steroids. The steroids include things like prednisone, hydrocortisone, and usually you're put on prednisone for a week or two. A short course of prednisone, and a short course of prednisone will cause you to blow up some in the short term, but then you lose that weight. But if you're taking high doses of prednisone over a long period of time, then that causes you to gain weight, and specifically gain fat. It's not just fluid, you actually add fat. So the first thing are the steroids. The second class of drugs that I see commonly cause weight gain in people are the antidepressants. And there are all sorts of antidepressants. There's older tricyclic antidepressants like Elavil, Endep, and amitriptyline, and there are the SSRIs, which we mentioned, like Paxil and Prozac. I don't know the mechanism of action of how every different medication causes weight gain, but these are very common.
Yeah.
And some people, they don't feel well because they're not healthy, because they're eating tons of sugar, tons of carbs, and then they end up, rather than kind of addressing their underlying health problem, their doctor says, well, you seem like you're kind of depressed. Well, and then they get them on an antidepressant, and then it just kind of doesn't address the root cause of the problem, which is the diet. So, starting with the diet, what I like to do with clients is get them to where they feel better, and them feeling better may take 6 months or a year, and then taper off of their antidepressant along with the under the supervision of their doctor. And then another class, so you got SSRIs and corticosteroids, the steroids, and then after that come the antipsychotic drugs. And people may think, well, I'm not psychotic. Why would I be on an antipsychotic drug, right?
Right.
But the antipsychotic drugs are used, to stabilize mood. They're used just like an antidepressant for a lot of people. So it's not that you're psychotic. It's just that your doctor's having trouble controlling your depression, and so it may put you on one of these medications. And that's like the Abilify, the aripiprazole. And also there's chlorpromazine, Geodon, Zyprexa, Clozaril. And I would say Zyprexa is probably one of the most common ones that I see that people are on. Other drugs that cause weight gain are the seizure medications. And there are all sorts of people out there who say, seizure medication? I've never had a seizure in my life. Why would I be on a seizure medication? Because they use seizure medications to treat chronic pain, to treat migraine disease, and also to help stabilize mood.
Yeah, it could be a seizure medication like Klonopin is listed as a seizure medication. Of course, it's a part of the benzodiazepine family class of drugs, which includes diazepam, Xanax, those kinds of drugs. I don't know if those would be listed as weight gainers, but is it possible?
Um, it's possible. I don't know that I have them on my list today, but I would have to look. I would have to look up Clonopin, in particular. Um, there are one of them that's commonly given is gabapentin. Gabapentin is known as Neurontin. That's the brand name. And gabapentin they give people for chronic nerve pain. Like if you have, so what happens is somebody may be like a diabetic, and so they're on medications that cause weight gain, and then in addition to that, they have diabetic neuropathy. They have pain in their feet from nerve damage, and so then in addition, they're put on the gabapentin, or valproic acid, which is Depakote. That's another one that's real commonly prescribed. And the diabetes drugs themselves, they often cause weight gain. Insulin, if someone is placed on insulin injections, insulin typically causes about, well, in one study it showed that it caused 11 pounds of weight gain the first year. But I mean, people who are put on insulin, oftentimes they need insulin.
Yeah.
But if you're using insulin, high amounts of insulin to cover a very high carbohydrate diet, then you're going to pack on even more pounds than that, like 20 pounds or 30 pounds a year.
Whoa, that's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. And some of the older oral diabetes drugs for type 2 diabetes, like glyburide and glipizide, they cause your pancreas to secrete more insulin, which causes you to gain weight. It worsens your insulin resistance.
What about metformin? Anything on that?
Metformin is actually a drug that decreases insulin resistance, and so it decreases weight. Metformin is known to decrease weight. So the drugs for diabetes that tend to decrease weight include the oral agent metformin, and also some injectable agents like Victoza, Victoza by Etta or Bidurion. Victoza by Etta and Bidurion decrease appetite, and that helps to lower weight.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are out there that are on metformin. But again, they don't necessarily want to be on metformin, but they're on it because they've been told or prescribed by a doctor saying, oh, you got to do it because your insulin spikes and insulin problems, and we need to get that under control for type 2 diabetes. I mean, that's one of the main drugs out there to treat it, right?
And yes, it's an old drug. It's a good drug.
Is there such a thing as a good drug, doctor?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing for a medication like metformin is that, number one, it decreases your blood sugar, and at the same time, it decreases your insulin resistance, which means it improves your diabetes. Lots of the drugs like glyburide and glipizide, they decrease your blood sugar, but they worsen insulin resistance, which means they worsen your diabetes. And so you want something that actually helps improve the diabetes itself, not just the blood sugars.
But you've also had a lot of patients that have come off the metformins and things like that. If they got real serious and took a real hardcore active approach to their overall health.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they can go back to their doctor and say, look, blood sugar levels I'm testing and I'm doing great. Maybe I don't need as much or any at all, right?
That's right. I've talked to a couple of different doctors. One is Dr. Richard Bernstein, and Dr. Bernstein has treated type 2 diabetics and type 1, both, with a very low carbohydrate diet. And Dr. Bernstein's recommendation is that his patients stay on their metformin as long as they have weight to lose. So even if they get their blood sugar normalized, that they stay on their metformin as long as they're losing weight, because it will help them with their weight loss. I've also talked to Dr. Eric Westman at Duke, and Dr. Westman, he recommended that once the blood sugar is normalized, go ahead and have their doctor take them off of the metformin, because there is a very small chance that metformin can cause something called lactic acidosis. So, it's not a harmless drug, but it does have potential side effects.
What happens when that occurs? The what'd you call it? Lactatosis?
Lactic acidosis.
That sounds like something milk related.
Well, it's something that can end up putting you in the hospital. It could be a very serious problem.
Yeah.
I think the chance of it happening, I'm not gonna ballpark the chance of it happening because it's I have a number in my head, but I would have to look it up for sure to see. but it is a very rare condition.
But again, the thing about it is, though, is to make changes to your diet and lifestyle now so you don't have to go down that path of being off in the ditch, stuck in the mud, and trying to get back out on the highway.
Well, and what happens
That's
is
what happens.
Patients, people who have the metabolic syndrome. The metabolic syndrome is the combination of being overweight with high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and low HDL cholesterol and high triglycerides, so their cholesterol is messed up. Well, those people get put on medications for high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and for their cholesterol. And those same medications that they get put on can cause weight gain. But, for example, the blood pressure medications. Blood pressure medications called the beta blockers. Beta blockers worsen blood sugars, they worsen insulin resistance, and they cause weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
Beta blockers are very commonly prescribed, and they include medications like atenolol, metoprolol, and propranolol. So it kind of ends in an "all" at the end. And another set of medications that can cause weight gain are antihistamines. So chronically taking antihistamines like Allegra, fexofenadine, people take it for allergies out here in West Texas all the time. And over time, they've been shown to cause weight gain because the receptors that they block tend to mess up your appetite. And speaking of appetite, another class of medications that causes weight gain that tons of people are on are the proton pump inhibitors. And proton pump inhibitors include things like omeprazole, Nexium, lansoprazole, so they all end in an "all" at the end, OLE. And those medications cause weight gain as well. And so you have somebody who has allergies and a little indigestion and a little high blood pressure, and they're on 1, 2, 3 medications that all cause weight gain. And the statin drugs, I had mentioned, like Lipitor, Pravachol, Crestor, those statin medications don't necessarily cause weight gain, but they do worsen insulin resistance and they do worsen blood sugars. And so your blood sugars are getting worse, so you get on more diabetes medication, and the diabetes medication that's added can be a diabetes medication that causes weight gain.
Sure.
So, it would be ideal if people, if you would, well, let's talk about weight gain. The way that people gain weight is very simple. There's a hormone in the human body, it's called insulin. And that hormone tells your body to store away excess calories, excess blood sugar as fat. And so as long as you have high insulin levels, you're going to store away fat. And so it'd be great if people would just, when they're young and healthy and feeling great, they'd say, oh, well, I'm going to eat a diet that's lower in refined carbohydrates and lower in sugar so I don't make so much insulin. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at a that's okay though.
Sorry, I was kind of peeking at Wade through the microphone boom.
I was like, my eyes. Oh, okay. So there you go.
He was peeking at me, and I was peeking at him. Okay, so I had to move that. It would be great to do it when you're young, but what happens is lots of people they have to get to a point to where they're ready to change. And they'll sit there and say, man, I'm taking 8 medications and I'm gaining weight and I feel horrible. I got to do something about this. And then that's when people usually come to the metabolic coaching program because they want to get off some of the medications, lose some of the weight, and they want to feel better.
Well, you've also had some people come to the program that are, like, me or anybody else who says, okay, look, I'm not morbidly obese, but, I'm pushing that. And these studies, doctor, that have come out recently that are showing that 40% of the American public are in that 25% BMI or higher category. Anything over 30 body mass index is what's classified by the CDC as morbidly obese. And when you're starting to see these numbers of 40% of the American public in those ranges, and they're trying to, we're all scratching our head going, what is going on here, and how do we stop that?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of wondering, why on earth are Americans so sick? If you're sitting here in the wealthiest country in the world,
Yeah.
the most advanced country in the world, you've got wonderful health care, you've got hospitals everywhere, doctors everywhere. Man, this ought to be a healthy country, and it's not. And it comes down to, number one, the diet. Too much sugar, too much refined carbohydrates, like a refined carbohydrate is bread, wheat, pasta, and then on top of that, you end up dealing with the too much refined carbohydrates with medications, and a lot of the medications cause weight gain and cause their own side effects, which require other medications. And so, and also too much polyunsaturated vegetable oils, which are inflammatory, and I believe that they contribute to messing up your natural production of hormones, and also your natural production of hormones and neurotransmitters. So start with the diet, and then hopefully you can move off of some of the medications.
Yeah, hopefully, because again, all these medications, while some are life-saving, I get it.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
you can have these contraindications between, this medication over here for this purpose, and this one over here you're taking for dizziness or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then because the two are mixing chemically within the body, that can also increase a weight gain situation.
Yeah.
Maybe like, for example, doctor, and the reason I'm asking this question is, what if you have, like, the example, medication X and medication Y, but they're not listed as a weight gainer, but once you mix them together,
and that nobody knows.
I mean, but isn't
Nobody
that
knows.
possible?
Yeah, it's possible, because when they do the clinical trials of the medications, they isolate things to where they measure only a single drug, which is a single change at a time. But what they've never done is they've never measured, done a clinical trial. What happens when you mix these 12 different drugs in a patient? Because that's what people come in on, is they'll come in on 12 different medications, and nobody knows what that does. There are no clinical trials that'll show you. The other thing is that a lot of medications, they will say in the clinical trials it didn't cause significant weight gain, or it only caused a pound or two of weight gain. Well, the clinical trial might have been 6 weeks long or 3 months long. But people end up taking these medications like the proton pump inhibitors. They were studied for shorter periods of time, but they'll take the proton pump inhibitors for 10 years. And after 10 years, you'll get a significant weight gain. And so that's specific. Proton pump inhibitors are like Nexium, today's purple pill, omeprazole. And that's exactly how that was discovered, is that in the clinical trials, I mean, there was no weight gain in that 6-week period. But if you put somebody on it on 10 years and you follow these people over 10 years, they weigh significantly more.
I'm just curious. I'm sure there's been some studies done, but I was just curious to think, what percentage, say people over the age of 50, how many of those people out there are on some drug, anything, over the age of 50? I bet 50%.
A boatload.
Wouldn't you say?
A boatload.
I would say it's a lot.
Yeah, and well, because what happens is, in your 40s, things will start creeping up on you, like your blood pressure or your blood sugar, and you'll start. Your doctor will start saying, well, you need to get your blood pressure down. I'll tell you, that's what happened to me. It wasn't in my 40s; it was in my 30s. So I was in my 30s, and every time I would go to the medical doctor, he would say, well, your blood pressure is a little high. If it stays high like this, we're going to need to put you on a blood pressure medication. And then again, the same thing the next year. Oh, it's still a little high. We might need to put you on a blood pressure medication. And if I had continued on that path, I would have ended up on blood pressure medication. Instead, I cut the carbs out of my diet. And when I cut the carbs out of my diet, my blood pressure dropped 20 points. And not only did I lose 40 pounds, but my blood pressure went down, and I had more energy, and I felt better. I didn't feel exhausted all the time. I felt wonderful. And I also stopped snoring, so that way I could sleep in my own bed again, because I wasn't waking up my wife every night.
Right.
Added benefit.
No kidding.
Just to mention something about, for people who snore or they have sleep apnea, when you put on weight, you don't just put it on around your belly or your backside or whatever, but you actually put on fat tissue around your airway. And so the more weight you gain, the more fat tissue you put around your airway, the worse your sleep apnea or your snoring is. And that's why weight loss helps with sleep apnea and helps with snoring, because you don't just lose weight around your belly either, you lose it around your airway. And so you too might be able to sleep in your own bed again.
I've noticed that when I've, again, lost significant amount of weight, like, again, I go back to when I came back from Iraq, I weighed 179. I'm currently at 225. That's a big difference, obviously. And I noticed that during that time of weight loss, when I was eating right, and I didn't know what I was doing back then, but obviously it was low carbohydrate, more high protein, and a lot of working out, combat stress, whatever. But it always seems to me like, and I guess people are the same, that I noticed that the weight loss first coming off of areas that it's almost like first on, last off as far as weight loss. In other words, meaning like if you have kind of...
exactly.
Well, why is that? I mean, what's up with that? I mean, it's like, okay, you start seeing it in the face first and then the neck area, and then you start losing it off, but the belly's always the last to go.
Different people store fat in different ways.
It's weird, though.
Some people will store fat in their head and have just kind of a fat head, even if they have like a trim body. That's the first place they store fat.
Are those guys that have really big fat necks with roll of fat
on the back?
On the back of the neck.
And some people it's the neck, it's the belly. Some people it's the hips and the backside. And so, yeah, when you lose weight, wherever it is that your body prefers to store, storing fat is a good thing for your body. Your body is storing fat in the event that you have to fast, in the event that you can't eat for a period of time. It's energy. It's just like storing food in your deep freeze, in case you can't go to the store. And so you're storing calories, you're storing food, you're storing fat, and your body will pick some place that's unique and that's unique to you. But the thing is, the abdomen, storing fat around the belly and the abdomen, that's the worst place to store fat, because that fat is very inflammatory. And it's number one, very inflammatory. Number two, for both men and women, having excess fat around the abdomen, around the belly area, that fat turns your natural hormone testosterone into different kinds of estrogens. And turning it into estrogens, well, for men, that lowers their testosterone level, and so men don't feel as manly. And for women, having the excess estrogen increases their risk of breast cancers. And so the reason that being overweight or obese is associated with different kinds of cancers is a lot because that fat around the abdomen acts as a hormonal factory, increasing estrogens and increasing inflammation.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the worst kind of fat there is. That's the one I deal with all the time. They call it the wheat belly or beer belly or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. But that's the worst kind of fat, really. And that's the one you really just try to work out hard.
I really like the term wheat belly, because they used, if anyone had a big belly, 30 or 40 years ago, a big belly was called a beer belly. But how do you explain all of these Americans walking around, two-thirds of Americans being overweight or obese with a big belly, but they don't drink beer? That's why Dr. Davis called it a wheat belly. It's because the number one culprit in the American diet is too much wheat.
Yes.
So,
which again goes back to the carbs angle. I mean, because the wheat is the carb, and boy, I tell you, they sure do taste good, but man, they do have a lot of health detriments.
Yeah, and I thought that I was being very healthy, doing great things for myself by eating whole grain bread, whole wheat bread, buying organic tortillas and stuff like that. But eating whole grains and whole wheat and organic is what caused me to get to 213 pounds. And cutting out the whole grains, the whole wheat, and the organic tortillas is what caused me to lose 40 pounds. So, and today I
kept it off.
And kept it off.
How long have you that 40-pound weight loss? I mean, how long have you been Uh, where are you currently at?
170.
Okay, and how long have you been that way?
Well, I lost the weight over about 6 months, and it took me, I lost it over 6 months, and I started about 5 years ago. So I've kept the weight off well over 4 years. And the key to that is that I eat the same thing today that I ate 5 years ago. I still keep the carbohydrates very low. I aim for less than 20 net carbs a day on most days. I do have some days where I'll eat some fruit, but usually I like to eat low carb fruit like berries.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I have a garden in my backyard, and in my garden we grow watermelons, and so there will be some times when I eat watermelons, and so
The occasional ice cream.
the occasional ice cream on my birthday.
Yeah, I saw you. I love it.
Wait, I thought you'd forgotten about that.
No, I'll never forget, Doctor. I saw you in there. I was like, and I wasn't having ice cream. Well, I've got a long way to go. I shouldn't, you don't throw rocks at you. But I just thought that was great. But you had it was a little tiny scoop and 2 spoons. I thought, man, if I'm going to go ahead and have ice cream, I'm going to have a pint.
Go all the way.
You, on the other hand, I'll take 2 teaspoons of ice cream. I thought, what is that about?
Well, one thing that I'll tell people is if, once you've reached your health and wellness goals, then at that point you can choose to be a little less strict and see what happens. So, I mean, if your goal is to get your blood sugar normal, your blood pressure normal, then if you want to have ice cream on your birthday, that's fine. But at the same time, I had a client at follow-up, and she had done wonderful. You talked about getting off your diabetes medication. So this client, she had sent me a text message and said, hey, my doctor told me I've reversed my diabetes. My blood sugar's dead normal. I'm off all my diabetes medication. Unbelievable. I'm so happy. So normal blood sugar, off all the meds, and then she went on vacation for a week to New Orleans. And in New Orleans, she ate whatever she wanted for a whole week, drank whatever she wanted for a whole week. And it has literally taken her 6 weeks to kind of try. She's back on her diabetes medication. And taking her 6 weeks to get her sugars back down to normal, get her weight back down to normal.
So 1 week trashed it?
Yeah, 1 week trashed it. And it can, the thing is, if you have type 2 diabetes, you have a very delicate balance between how many carbs you can eat, how much insulin your pancreas can make. And over time with type 2 diabetes, the pancreas can be damaged and the pancreas can die to where your pancreas just can't make enough insulin. And so if you have a binge week, something like a binge week, then you can burn out and kill even more of your pancreas. And so it can take a long time for that to recover.
Yeah, I've told the story lots of times on this show, but it bears repeating that 2 different cruises, same cruise line. One was a 10-day cruise out of Miami to Panama Canal, and one was a 10-day cruise out of L.A. down to Acapulco and back to L.A., 10-day cruises. And I did them back-to-back. In other words, back-to-back being in the springtime, I did one spring, and the following spring did the other one. Well, the first cruise, on the 10-day cruise, I thought, man, I'm just going to go hog wild. I mean, I'm going to drink what I want. I'm going to eat what I want. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and just have fun.
You gained 10 pounds
I
on
gained
that
10
one.
pounds on that cruise. The next year on the one out of L.A., a 10-day cruise, I said, you know what? I'm going to eat very good. Now, I didn't know anything about what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about the low-carb stuff. But I thought, well, I'm going to hit the gym every day. I'm going to only eat, salads and steaks and lobster tails because you can eat all you want. But I'm not eating pizza, hamburgers, French fries. See, I stayed away from that.
Just kind of stay away from the junk.
I stayed away from that stuff, and I lost 10 pounds on that cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Lost 10 pounds, gained 10 pounds. I found that fascinating.
You probably enjoyed yourself on both cruises.
I did.
I
didn't feel. Yeah. I didn't feel. I didn't feel like I was on the 10-day cruise where I was being healthy.
Yeah. Going
to the gym every morning and getting a little cardio in, a little strength training in, eating healthy while on the cruise because you have healthy choices. I mean, even on a cruise line, you do have choices, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so, but anyway, I came back and I felt wonderful. And when I came all the way back to Lubbock, I got on the scale, and sure enough, I lost 10 pounds in 10 days. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't know what I was doing like I do now. I mean, I didn't know about the carb thing, but I just remember.
But now you know.
Well, now I know,
now
right?
Looking back at it, you know.
Now I know.
You know why it worked.
But I know why it did, because I stayed away. Because, I mean, like in your stateroom, you can call, you could be 3 o'clock in the morning and get a New York-style pizza delivered to your cabin. You know, I mean, you can eat whatever you want, but they have a menu there, right, in your room.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have on there good choices, too, like steak and steamed broccoli or whatever. And I was eating that as opposed to going to the pizza.
You guys, talking about cruises, you and Dr. Ben interviewed Jimmy Moore. He's the author of the Keto Clarity and talks about the ketogenic diet. But Jimmy Moore, once a year, he puts together a low-carb cruise. And so you can go on a low-carb cruise. It's low-carb food. And then in addition to that, there are lots of low-carb speakers. And so if you're interested in cruising and you would like to do a low-carb cruise, Jimmy Moore puts it together once a year.
Why don't you do one?
You can just...
We need to do one. We can do one.
You know, I got little kids, you know.
That's okay.
I don't know that I can
take them
that
along.
long.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, you know, a low-carb cruise out of Lubbock would be cool. I bet, you know, we used to do these health cruises with Dr. Wright, and we'd always fill up. I mean, we'd do 30, 40 people would go every year.
Uh-huh.
Because he would give seminars. Because when you go on a 10-day cruise, you're at sea probably 2 or 3 days of that 10 days, at least, if not more. So you have plenty of time to give seminars, hold classes. People go to learn things. I mean, they're a lot of fun. We ought to do that. I mean, people would flock to something like that. It would be wonderful. And I enjoyed them. I mean, our health cruises, and I took probably, I want to say 5 or 6 maybe like that.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 2000s with Dr. Wright. Did them every year. And we'd always have 30, 40 people that would want to go, and they would love having that one-on-one deal with the doctor. And it was great. And so that's why I think that's kind of what made me think of it, is that on one of the health cruises, I thought, yeah, I'll just do what I want. The other cruise, no, I'm going to do what he's talking about. Because he was 95 years old and always in great shape. And, you know, he was never really overweight guy. And I always asked him about that.
Put together the logistics for me.
I think it would be cool. In fact, he was on the cruise one day, and I walked out on the Lido deck, and Dr. Wright was up there, and he was having a Corona, one beer. And I walked up to him, and I was sitting there slurping on a Coke, you know.
Right.
And I said, Dr. Wright, I said, you know, what about that? Would you rather drink this or that? And he said, oh, absolutely not that. He goes, that's garbage. And I said, really? And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, don't you know my sugar chart? And he used to have these little cubes of sugar on this chart.
Uh-huh.
And it had like 47 of them or something. He said, that's what's in that Coke right there. You're drinking all that sugar. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I guess I better not.
And that's one thing from Dr. Bernstein. What's one thing from Dr. Bernstein is that for diabetics, you can have one alcoholic drink a day. And talking about diabetics and taking a week off, taking a week off and not checking your blood sugar is a horrible idea, because you know, they have these extreme weight loss shows on TV where the guy, he works out and goes on a special diet for 3 months. And I watched this extreme weight loss show, and maybe he lost like 70, 80 pounds. He looked great. He felt great. He got off some of his medications. And then at the end of the show, it said, this show is dedicated to so-and-so, who was the guy who had just won the show. And it was dedicated to him because he was that same year that he had lost the weight and reversed his diabetes and all this sort of stuff, he was found dead in his hotel at spring break in like Miami or somewhere, because they say he died from a hyperglycemic coma, which is too high a blood sugar coma, which means basically he went off on spring break and he just said, hey, I'm not going to pay attention to my sugar. And I bet he ate whatever he wanted and did whatever he wanted. And so if you're type 2 diabetic, even if you do great and you lower your blood sugar, you know, you can have a bad meal here or there, but you don't want to take a week off checking your blood sugar and eating whatever you want, because that's a recipe for disaster.
Well, everybody is trying to find the all-elusive oh, gee, doc, I just don't know if I can. And I'm one of those. I don't know if I can do just 20 net carbs every day, 7 days a week. So I'm thinking about maybe trying this carb cycling, or I'm thinking, on and on. We search for ways around it, and I'm finding out that there's really no way around it. I mean, if you really truly want to get the weight off and keep the weight off, there's no way to do it, really.
That's my experience with people, is that I've done I have coached hundreds of clients over several years, and in coaching people, just kind of cutting down on the carbs, tapering off the carbs, it doesn't work. The cutting down, the tapering off is just like cutting down and tapering off of smoking. It doesn't work. Cold turkey works to quit smoking, and cold turkey works to quit the carbs. Also, I've tried, for certain people saying, well, you can take 50 carbs a day, or you can take 60 carbs a day based on your activity level and your age and your sex, and that doesn't work great either. And people don't make any progress. But where people make progress is go down to less than 20 net carbs a day, get yourself into fat burning, get yourself to where you're making progress and you're losing weight, and stay there.
How far down, though, does it go? In other words, like if you're doing, I mean, you said you've been doing this for, what, 5 years? But you stabilize at some point, right? You don't, because I think, what about the fear of, well, hey, doctor, if I do 20 net carbs or less every day for infinity, I'm going to become emaciated.
That's what I thought would happen to me. I had no clue, because I got, when I was a junior in high school, I weighed 180 pounds. And so when I started doing this diet, when I cut the carbs out of my diet, I didn't really have a goal, but I thought, hey, if I get down to 180 pounds, so I was 213. And I thought, if I get down to 180 pounds, that's 30 pounds weight loss. I'll be happy with that. And that's what I weighed when I was a junior in high school. So I went down, was doing the diet, I went down to 180. And then I went down to 170. And then I went down to 165. And I thought, well, I can't keep losing weight like this. I'm going to shrink away to nothing. But what happened is my weight came back up from 165 to 170, and it's just stayed there for 4 years. So basically, you reach a point at which your body reaches what is the ideal weight for your body. It may not be the ideal weight on a chart, but you'll reach a point which is like the ideal weight for your body, and you'll just stay there. So
you don't really move that much.
You don't move that much, even though you eat the same. You reach, homeostasis. Your body just wants to kind of maintain everything the same, and you get there.
Text coming in, it's Greg saying, I used Keystone strips to know how much I can eat and still burn fat.
Yes, and so that's one of the things from the old Atkins diet, from his first book in, I think, 1973. At the pharmacy, they sell urine ketone strips. And the urine ketone strips, basically you can test your urine, and if the strip turns slightly pink, it indicates that there are some ketones, which indicates that you're burning fat. And so I'll use those in some clients who they're wondering, well, am I burning fat? Am I in ketosis? Am I doing the diet right? Well, you can use one of those urine ketone strips to test and see if you're actually making ketones, if your carbs are low enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't use that routinely on everybody, but for some people, it's one of the things if they plateau, they plateau and they're like, well, am I eating too many carbs? What's going on? Well, you can use the strip to make sure that you're actually
And you've
burning
also
fat.
said that if you have a patient that starts to plateau a little bit, that you might integrate a little bit of intermittent fasting in that.
Yes, and so there are all sorts of things that can cause people's weight loss to stall or plateau on a very low carbohydrate diet. Maybe they're eating too many nuts. Maybe they're eating too much dairy. Maybe they're eating some sort of food that's particularly inflammatory. Well, if you do a 24-hour fast twice a week, a 24-hour fast is low in nuts, it's low in dairy, it's low in whatever inflammatory food might be your problem, And so, people can search out, there are different ways to search out what might be the offending food for you. Or you can fast. And when you fast, it's low in everything.
Because you're not eating anything.
Because you're
not drinking
eating
water.
And
or maybe a little bit of bone broth, but that's it.
You will not ruin your metabolism with fasting. Your body is made to fast. If you eat a calorie-restricted diet, which is just a small amount of calories day after day after day, then your body says, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute, there aren't enough calories here. I'm on a calorie restricted diet. It'll lower your metabolism because your body wants to kind of conserve energy. But the fasting, intermittent fasting especially, fasting is something that happens some days and it doesn't happen the other days, and your body's well adapted to deal with it. So like if you don't eat for 24 hours, you'll burn fat during that time and have plenty of energy. And then you eat dinner, and when you eat dinner, you eat plenty of food. Your body's like, oh, there's plenty of food, so I don't have to lower my metabolism. I'm fine. And then you can do another fast. And usually I'll have clients fast for 24 hours, 2 days a week.
Have you ever had patients that have done it more? Like, in other words, say, hey, I'm going to do 24-hour fasting Monday through Friday.
I've had some.
And what was the results of that along with low carbohydrate diet?
I've had some clients who will fast like 3 days a week routinely. And I've had several clients who just eat one meal a day. And one meal a day is a 24-hour fast every day. And they've done great, you know.
Does it accelerate the weight loss when they do that?
I don't know. I can't say with 100% certainty because for them they never really tested it. What if I do it this way versus this way to where I have a test? But it's just one of the things is that if you're not hungry, you don't have to eat. You don't have to eat 6 small meals a day. You don't have to eat breakfast if you're not a breakfast eater. If you're not hungry, just don't eat. That's like logic that a 5-year-old could understand. Well, if I'm not hungry, don't eat. And if I don't eat as often, I probably won't weigh as much. Well, that's actually true. So they've done 24-hour fast, and that's.
Has any of them stepped up into the 48, 72-hour range on fasting? I've done a few of those.
You know, my clients haven't done that, and they've never really needed to. Well, I've had one client who she did do extended fast for 3 days or 4 days, and it didn't really help her. What really helped her was we went through a program called The Plan, and on the plan you identify foods and combinations of foods that cause you to gain weight. And she found, number one, when she ate dairy, she gained weight. Number two, if she ate 2 red meats in a day, she gained weight. So her whole program, she did low carb, and in doing low carb, she could only have red meat 1 time a day, and she couldn't eat dairy. So avoiding those 2 things, she ended up losing the weight.
So real quick, couple of texts here. I thought breakfast sets your metabolism for the whole day.
And I thought oatmeal was a healthy breakfast, but it blows your blood sugar out of the water. It's horrible for you. So, there's a lot of common conventional wisdom that's just dead wrong. I will tell you that if you do want to have breakfast, that's fine. I eat breakfast probably half of the days of the week. If you're going to have breakfast, if you're doing the program, you want a low carb, high fat breakfast, something like eggs, bacon, sausage, perfect. But you don't have to have breakfast. If you think about Paleolithic man, if you think about us before the dawn of agriculture, there would be some days when you had plenty of food for breakfast and some days when you didn't, and you'd be fine.
What if you are another text coming in? What if you're hungry all the time?
If you're hungry all the time, that's probably because you're eating a very high carbohydrate diet all the time. The number one best thing to get rid of hunger is switch over to eating less than 20 net carbs a day.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've totally tried it, and it works. Because I used to be, when you eat a lot of carbs, it's that up and down cycling that you're thinking, every 2 hours. It's like going to the Chinese restaurant.
Every 2 hours, I'm starving.
And eating fried rice, and then 2 hours later, I'm like, man, I'm starving again. It's the same thing, all that carb load, right?
Yep, exactly.
36, another text coming in. 36-hour fast. Eat Monday night, not again till Wednesday morning. Eat Wednesday night, not again till Friday morning. Every week, energy, energy, energy.
Yeah, and so that's a really surprising thing, is that people think, well, if I'm not eating, I'm gonna feel horrible. I'm gonna feel drained.
I didn't.
But people don't. The people, when they fast, and I've even mentioned this at follow-ups. I do this 24-hour fast twice a week. I do it because other people in the group do it, and so I do it with them. And I feel better on my fasting days than I do on the days when I eat, which is weird, but your body releases hormones like norepinephrine that help keep your energy level high during fasting, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel better instead of worse.
Yeah, that's true. I've done it. I've done it this summer. I was going back and forth from going, and my wife thought I was crazy. I mean, because she was like, I can't do that. My sugar would just go berserko. Some people can't, by the way.
Right. Yeah, some people don't do
some
very
people
well.
don't do very well on a fast.
And some people have to practice.
That's right.
Yeah, some people don't do well, and I've had some clients who they had trouble fasting, and then as they practice over time, they get better, and they do great.
That's true. And there for a while, I was doing really well with just not, the last meal would be Sunday night, and I wouldn't eat again until Wednesday, kind of like this last texter. And I noticed, and I stopped it like an idiot. I stopped it. But that 2 months that I did that every week, I was losing about 6 to 8 pounds a month doing that.
That's great.
And I wasn't cutting killer carbs either, doctor. I was just doing the fast.
Well, there are different ways you can lower your insulin levels, but I'll tell you this. You can lower your insulin level by cutting the carbs or by doing fasting. But I don't generally recommend people fast unless they're on a very low carbohydrate diet, because then they do feel pretty miserable. So I think if you're on a very low carbohydrate diet to where you're not used to eating sugar all the time, doing a fast is easy. Super easy. And so it's a much easier way to fast.
I agree with you. I think that's what got
carb.
me all jacked up, was that I was doing this in June and July, the months of June and July, 2 months straight, with a 48 to 72 hour fast. Beginning of the week, basically 3 days, nothing except water.
Right.
And I will tell you that by the third day, man, I was just like, I was foggy. I couldn't even work out. And then when I ate, I felt great. But then I was losing weight. But then I would go so hog wild those remaining days of the week that it was like I'd take 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, and I've told you,
because that just kills it, right?
I've had people who only eat 1 meal a day.
Yep.
They only eat 1 meal a day, which means they do a 24-hour fast every single day, and they gain weight. And that's because the 1 meal a day that they eat is full of sugar and rice and bread.
A plate of raviolis with cheese.
Yeah,
whatever.
And pasta.
Pasta will kill it every time. I'll eat a box of macaroni and cheese. I cut all that out. But I used to eat a box of macaroni and cheese like it was nothing. You know, and I would dress it up with, peppers and, good healthy things, garlic, and I'd throw all these crazy items in the macaroni and cheese, and I would convince myself that was a healthy meal. I mean, it was loaded up with good stuff, basil and garlic and fresh this and that and peppers, and
got all your food groups.
And it was all good and everything, but the whole box of macaroni and cheese gave me the insulin would just jack through the. I don't eat macaroni and cheese anymore. Very rarely, but
I would like to give people a homework assignment, which is that if you found that you've gained weight in the last year or two, think about what medications you might have started during that time period that your weight gain started, and see if that correlates, because that medication may be one of them that we mentioned today, and you can start working with your doctor or come to metabolic coaching and work with us to see if we can change your diet to where you don't require the medication, and then you can get off of it
and the weight
under
gainer.
The supervision of your doctor.
Good point. Dr. Justin Anderson, everybody. Cut the Killer Carbs. Check it out on Facebook. Check out our website, too, metabolic-coaching.net, metabolic-coaching.net, 448-0322. Always a pleasure to have you out, Doctor. Good show once again today. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday on the program.
All right. Thank you, Wade.
Have a wonderful week, sir.
You too.
Stick around. Unconfused coming up next right here on AM 580.